So before we get into the first scripture there, let me just tell you that a husband and a wife can help each other fulfill their biblical responsibilities by how they respond to one another. That is a problem with quite a few of our marriages is, hey, we know that we love each other. We know that we're in it for the long haul. We know that we've made a commitment, but we respond to each other sometimes with attitude. We respond to each other sometimes in anger or in lack of patience and how many of you know that the way that you respond to your spouse is going to determine the next 5, 10, 15 weeks, the next 5, 10, 15 minutes of how that conversation is going to go, how you respond to the other person. I have been guilty many times of responding in a way that just sets my wife off. I'm not perfect. Far from it. I know some of you are sitting there going, you're far from perfect. But I'm still a work in progress. God's not done with me yet, and I'm pretty sure that He's not done with you yet. So one of the things that we need to be aware of is how we respond to each other, regardless of what it is. I've even found myself, how many of you have been in a position where you might be at work, you have a really crummy day going on, or you're really stressed out, and your spouse calls you, hey honey, how are you? What's up? You want to be there, but you're not there because it ain't happening for you right now. Whereas the other person's like, all Disneyland kind of thing, And you are far from Disneyland. You are more like, not scary farm, So, you know what I'm saying? Your responses make a big difference, and that can just flip the person's switch to go from better to worse. So, Ephesians 5:21 through 24 talks about a spirit-guided relationship. Wives and husbands, it says, and further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. For wives, this means submit to your husband as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He's the Savior of his body, the church. And as the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in what? Everything. In everything. So, a lot of Christians believe that a husband's responsibility is to be that head of his family, and a wife's responsibility is to submit to her husband. But submission may be more appropriately seen as a response rather than a responsibility. Remember I told you we talked about biblical responsibilities last week, and of course we were talking about that scripture where, wives submit to your husbands. Well, wives submit to your husbands if he's a godly man, if he's doing the right thing. If he's a jerk, if he's morally in sin, if he's constantly having you do things that you know are wrong, then you don't submit to him. But if he's doing the right thing, if he's trying to be the man of God, if he's trying to be the leader of the household, both in a physical sense and in the spiritual sense, then yes, biblically, wives are expected to do that. But it's all based on a response, more than a responsibility. Are you with me? Yeah. Colossians 3:18 says, wives, submit to your husband as is fitting for those who belong to the Lord. And 1 Peter 3:1 talks about, in the same way, you wives must accept the authority of your husbands. Then, even if some refuse to obey the good news, your godly lives will speak to them without any words. They're going to be won over by observing your pure and reverent heart, or reverent lives. Don't be concerned about the outward beauty of fancy hairstyles, expensive jewelry, or beautiful clothes. You should clothe yourselves instead with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is so precious to God. This is how holy women of old made themselves beautiful. They trusted God and accepted the authority of their husbands. For instance, Sarah obeyed her husband, Abraham, and called him her master. I'm not saying to call your man master, okay? Guys, I'm not giving you authority to tell your wife to call you master. You are, I don't know why they're laughing like I would really do that anyway, right? You are her daughters when you do what is right without fear of what your husband might do. So, what do you think it means to submit or be submissive? And obviously this is directed at the ladies, so what do you think? What do you think it means to be submissive or to submit? Claudina?
I think to submit and be submissive is to respect you, to love you for the gift that you are to me and to our house from the Lord, to acknowledge your efforts and value you as a human being, as a father of my children, as the head of our household, to be your teammate, to cheer you on, to do you good, not harm you, to add value to you.
Well, I'm feeling a little Thaler right now. You didn't clap for this one in the place.
So that's what submissive is to me. And if any of the ladies have never felt, I don't know about the ladies, but I ask God to help me love you the way that He intends me to love you, and He does. And there's times that I will sit back and I think, what a blessing and what a gift you are to me from the Lord. And I value that tremendously. And those of you that know me also know that I have a strong personality. It doesn't mean that I will subject myself to, any kind of verbal or emotional abuse, but that's not who He is. So I'm able to respect Him as a man of God. Is He perfect? No, He's not perfect, but I know His heart. I know His heart. I know that when He gets up every day, and this helps me to submit to Him as my covering, the fact that I know that everything that He does is for the betterment or the best interest of His family. So that's what submission is.
When's the credit card bill coming in?
Tomorrow.
Just kind of wondering. Yes, Mrs. Agundes.
Me, when I hear submissive, since I've been here, I understand that to submit is to be like your spouse, helping, to work alongside with them, and let them be the leader.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Stand by them even if they're failing, no matter what. Even if they're at the weakest point, it's never, he's always going to be right. Even if you know he's wrong, you got to just stand by your man no matter what.
Okay. Yes.
For me personally, it's not to question everything. My first reaction in my own personality, like letting it just why. And submit is remember we're on the same team and His intentions are always good. So don't question it. I know it's from a good place.
No, and that's I think that's a great opinion. I just think that, listen, we don't always have the right answer. So questioning, not to question, no. But like Claudina would say, I've come to the realization that it gets so much further when you say, can I make a suggestion? Because He's not always going to have the right answers, as you well know, right? So He depends on you every once in a while to come through and be able to say, as a suggestion, maybe, that's still submitting. Ultimately, it's like, hey, whatever you decide is fine, but let me suggest that I'm not just speaking to you, I'm speaking to everybody. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Instead of the word submit, I would appreciate cooperate, because we stand beside one another, and if we cooperate, we're stronger. Being two makes one. And when there's something to be done, and we both cooperate with one another, anticipating how we can be of help, it gets done better, and it gets done quicker, and we're both happy that we helped one another.
Okay, so the book says submit, so Billy, you got a rebel on your hands. She doesn't want to submit. She wants to cooperate. Okay? She wants to cooperate. She doesn't want to submit. We got your back. Good. No, I can appreciate what you're saying. Cooperate's a good word. Ultimately, you can't change, and I'm not saying there's no validity to what you're saying. Cooperate's a good word. Nonetheless, biblically, speaking of the Bible, it says not cooperate. It says submit. Okay? I'm just telling you what the Bible. Listen, I'm not
I think that I was just talking to somebody yesterday at the beach, and we were talking about the lessons that we're doing and how difficult it is for 21st century people to hear that verbiage because of the society that we live in and because everything that we've been taught and everything that we hear in the world and everything that we've seen. We have seen, honestly, a lot of bad things happen to good marriages where one or the other party is not doing what they're supposed to and things end up badly. So it is difficult for 21st century Christians or to hear these words and go, submit. Oh, you know, my grandma did that and look what happened to her. So, you know, we need to kind of take that 21st century mentality and throw it out the window and just ask God to show us how this applies to our marriage, because every marriage is different, and ask Him to reveal that to you.
Right, that's good. So what kind of emotions does the concept of submission raise? I know where, I mean, you're coming from.
It's always someone's always gonna feel like they're less of a person in the relationship. Most people try to be equal, and what that does is butts heads because they want to be just looking at each other the same height, and it won't work in any household.
So submission is kind of like giving in. Submission is kind of like lowering yourself in power. No? Did you have your hand up?
The emotion that I comprehend as submission is if I would find myself in a very peaceful state if I submit to my husband without if I felt
Okay. Yes.
I think it would really depend on the mood of the conversation. I mean, if something's being, not if you're having an argument with your spouse, but if a decision's made out of, I guess you could say, anger, your emotion's going to be, it's going to break the other person's heart. Say it that way. Someone's going to get their feelings hurt. But if you are in understanding of each other and the decision is said, you know, let's do this, and you know, you submit saying, oh, okay, that sounds good to me too, then no, you're not going to feel less than. You're going to feel proud that the man or whoever takes that initiative. You're going to feel, you can feel all kinds of emotions.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I think on that subject, it's not necessarily what we think, but what the Bible says, what God tells us to do. We follow it. Okay, there are some circumstances that the Bible tells us when you're not going to be able to submit. If there's something wrong with the what is being an input, you know, to you. In this century, you know, a lot of people that word submission means, you know, hey, you're a dummy if you believe in that, you know. But we as Christians, we follow the law of God, and we're supposed to. We always try to put the human factor in, but we're supposed to remember that we follow God, and we're supposed to do it to the what is the word? To the fine letters, you know. We cannot interpret things to our own understanding. We got to do it as God asked us.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else? Yes.
a happy, obedient daughter of the Lord.
Say that again.
A happy, obedient daughter of the Lord, because it's really I'm submitting to the Lord because He calls me to do it, and everything is I do for my husband, I do for the Lord.
Okay, that's good. So why do you think that the Bible passages that refer to husbands and wives never tell the husband to make his wife submit? Huh?
That's impossible.
Yes, Mrs. Steele.
It's just like what Monique said, we're not doing it for him to be telling us, we're doing it out of reverence to the Lord.
Right,
It's supposed to be something that we're doing to honor God.
right.
And it's not supposed to be our husband telling us to do it, because then we're
That's good. And I would give you, let me give you the flip side of that, because as you're sitting there and telling me that, I'm thinking, do you think that men submit to their wives? Husbands submit to their wives? Based on emotion?
No.
Really?
I think they do.
Really? Oh, I'm gonna get you.
Fear is an emotion, right?
Let me tell you, here's a perfect scenario. I know I'm not gonna ask you how many women have done this before, because you're gonna be like, oh my God. So, ladies, you have your mindset on doing something or going somewhere or buying something or whatever it is, okay, some kind of a decision. Your husband is adamant about being the opposite way and the decision not going your way. What do you do? What do? You cry. How many men give in to their women crying? All of them. Most of them. If the husband has any kind of a heart, any kind of smarts, okay, he is giving in to his wife's emotion. And he changes his submission based on emotion.
Depends on the
Your point is absolutely on the money.
I think that there's certain situations.
You're absolutely right.
Not the picture as a whole.
You're absolutely right. I just had to bring up that, it's like, you women are master manipulators. Yeah. I know the cat's out of the bag. I'm sorry. All the guys are sitting there going, I knew it.
Okay, so for us to get what we want, we just gotta cry.
No, okay. I'm just saying. Excuse me. Wait, security?
I'm gonna believe that my husband does it because he wants to please me. Not because I'm crying, because he doesn't respond to me crying. Because he's like, I'm over it. That's him. If I'm mad, that's a great story. If I'm mad, he's like, really gonna throw a tantrum?
That's out of fear.
But okay. It's because he knows that if I don't go my way, I'm gonna keep on throwing that tantrum. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to fight with her because I don't want to see her unhappy. I don't. That I'd rather her be happy and know that I'm pleasing her because I want her to be
Master manipulator. You just said, if I don't get my way, I'm going to keep on throwing that tantrum. No, that's all right. We're mailing out degrees for master manipulation.
Give in, to a certain, we've been together for almost 20 years. So at first, yeah, it may be like that, but like, oh my gosh, she's crying. But then you get to know her, and you get to know when she's really genuinely meaning it, or really coming from the inside, or when it's, like you said, manipulative, or just trying to get her way. So that's where it's the difference, it's like you've been together so long, you understand when she's really, really serious about something, or she just wanting to get her way.
No, I hear you.
I think the goal in every relationship, every marriage is to get to the point where you want to mature and be in a place where you no longer play games, where you don't have to rely on tears or whatever. I really believe that husband and wife have to be reasonable. And this is the advice I've given my own daughter. She's dating, she's 22, one day she's going to get married and have a husband.
Oh, she's not.
And I said to her, I think the greatest quality, other than him being, a believer, being of the same faith, I said, is finding someone who is reasonable. Because if you are a reasonable individual and you have the ability to think outside of your own box and allow yourself to be reasonable with your spouse, that's a good thing to have in a relationship. And that doesn't come overnight, especially if you got married without premarital counseling. That comes later. But that's a wonderful gift as a husband and wife to be able to sit down and have reasonable conversations. And your husband, as the head of the household, can make a suggestion regarding something, I'm going to say something major, like let's move to Costa Rica or something. Well, those are the kinds of things sold. Stan is like, Something like that, something major, like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, or this is how we're gonna do it, and bring their spouse and sit them at the table and have them add their input. But as wives, we need to be in a place where we can trust our husbands. So this is really difficult. This is a difficult subject because women don't feel like they can completely trust their husbands to lead. They don't feel that they can completely trust their husbands to make the right decisions. Why? Because we do live in a 21st century where women are educated, they have careers, they go to school, they can count too. You know, they know how to count, they know how to budget, they know how to take care of themselves. So this is where this reasonable thing comes in. And we, as women, really need to be before the Lord and ask Him to help us be that wife that He wants us to be, that supporting wife.
Okay, that's good. I feel like I have the wind knocked out.
Show me on a chart. Tell Allan.
Cindy, what?
I don't cry. Usually if I want to go somewhere, he'll just do it to make me happy. Like that time when we got home from camp and I wanted to go to the powwow. And at first he's like, I'm not going. And I was like, okay, I'll just take mine. And he ended up going. And I didn't cry the next day.
So you don't cry, you threaten.
That's
right.
Whatever works for you. I mean, you know, that's,
He does it to make me happy.
no, of course. And of course, we don't want to, it's like, okay, I'm going to take our somewhat newborn child and go to an Indian reservation to a powwow. You know, God only knows if they're passing the peace pipe. You don't know what's going on. And so why is your husband going to let you go, you know, by yourself? So, I get it. Okay. So, let me ask you this. What are some of the hang-ups people have regarding the concept of submission? Actually, I think Flavina kind of answered that, at least for ladies. And we asked what circumstances should a wife not submit to her husband, and I kind of covered that a little bit earlier. When you have a man that's not acting godly, that's not acting biblically, that's not acting as the spiritual head of the household, those are the times when you need to have that red flag. Why? Because you don't want, listen, if someone came along and go, hey man, I want to take you to hell, you want to go? Okay, you know, you're not all about that. So you need to separate yourself from that, and you need to make sure that, you know, and that's why we tell you all the time, you should be hanging out with us. Okay? If you're not hanging out with us, I don't know who you're hanging out with, but I'm hoping that you're hanging around godly people that have good, godly influence and encouragement on you. If you're not doing that, then when things start happening in your life, you have no one to blame except yourself. Because, you know, that worldly statement of what you hang around, you become.
Yeah.
You know, that's not exactly how the world says it, but I'm not going to give into that and say it how they say it. You know? But
That is bad.
yeah, don't say it in Spanish either, because there's a lot of people that speak Spanish here, you know what I'm saying? So, you have to be careful about who you hang around, who you let influence in your life. You know? You want positive influence in your life. Do you have something?
I just wanted to say that that's very true. We need to be careful. We need to guard our marriage from the world that's trying to, you know, everything you watch on TV, music, people. It seems like there's an attack on marriage, especially godly marriages. And we need to be very careful that we surround ourselves with other couples that value marriage, with other couples that have a good marriage and a godly lifestyle. Everybody's different. Everybody does marriage different, you know, whatever works for them. No two marriages are alike, and that's great, and that's what you learn when you hang around other marriages. And it's, don't hang around. I am against husband bashing. I don't like to hear women bash on their husbands. It's one thing if you need prayer and you need counseling, but make sure you only talk to a couple of people, because you don't want your girlfriends helping you beat up your husband or your wife, for that matter. That's not good. It's not healthy.
Okay. I don't know how you got on husband bashing, but okay.
Because we're talking about hanging around people that have good marriages, and that's the case. You don't want the women in the kitchen talking smack about he doesn't do anything, he doesn't clean, he's just, oh yeah girl, let me tell you, he's lazy. That's not good. Or God only knows what the guys talk about.
I saw talk.
So, if a husband is fulfilling his biblical responsibilities, what effect do you think this fulfillment would have on his wife's attitude about submission? Well, ladies, is it a positive thing?
Yes.
I mean, is it going to have a good effect on your attitude about submission when the man is the godly, spiritual head of the household kind of thing? Right? Makes it a little bit easier, right? Okay. So how do you think submission can be demonstrated in marriage? Oh, so there's the question. How do you think submission can be demonstrated in marriage?
I think it was naturally, all these things we just happen naturally.
What things? That's the question.
No, I know, I don't have it.
Okay, we'll come back to you. What would be, yes, Jen?
Doing things that are important to him, like let's say it's important for him to have dinner ready when he comes home.
That's important.
Some guys are like, whatever, they don't care, they just go out to eat, they don't mind cooking, but if your husband, if that's something that speaks to his heart, that's something that's easy to do.
I just think that stuff would just be happening. It would just be flowing.
Well, yes, but we're talking about what things? Now, you're saying that thing.
Your husband,
Yes,
having the laundry done, like having dinner made, things that are just part of our everyday life.
Yes, but submission also has something to do with, I think Jen hit it really well when she said things that your husband likes, And there's mutual submission, don't get me wrong, but yes.
I think, it's what she said, but the mindset is to be intentional. I don't think it just happens. I think we have to be intentional about paying attention to what, because we could be doing one thing and not even realize they could care less, or that doesn't do anything for them, or it has the opposite effect. I think we just have to pay attention and really make a point. Be intentional about what you're doing that speaks to your husband.
If there's, and that's good, if there's certain things that, like Jen was saying, well, maybe it's not important that you have your meal waiting for you, or it's got to be a home-cooked meal because the guy can be just like, well, fine, I'll have the dinner, I don't care. But if you're doing things that really aren't that important to him, but you think that they should be important to him, then you're not going to get the reception that you're expecting, and then you become disappointed. And at the same time, guys are the same way. It's like, wow, I cut the grass. Well, you should be cutting the grass. It's like, I edged. Well, how do you cut the grass without edging? It's like, no, but look at the lines. If you did it right, there's going to be lines, okay? So, there's kind of that expectations, and we all want the kudos and the pats on the back and attaboys and attagirls and everything like that, but it's got to be in line with what your expectations of your spouse is, right? Yes.
I was going to go right along the lines of that. If my husband is out working in the front yard doing that, and I'm in the house doing my own thing, but halfway of him cutting that grass, if I'm watching or go take him a glass of water or something, or make sure he's hydrated wise, I guess paying attention to what his needs may be without being told.
I can remember when Claudina and I got married and we got our first house, and actually I worked so much that Claudina usually took care of the grass, and when we moved into our second house, I started taking care of the grass. And so I would cut the grass, and I know you guys are going to laugh, but maybe it's happened to you too. I'd go out and I'd cut the grass, and she'd stop me midway. She goes, "You're not doing it right." What do you mean? How do you not do it right? I'm putting the mower over the grass. I'm not putting my name in it or anything like that. I'm trying to keep it, but she was like, Claudina's the kind of person, like, when she vacuums, she got to see those lines, man. If she don't see the lines, there's something wrong with the vacuum. It's not doing the lines. There's something wrong with the vacuum. David, I can see the line. No, I don't see the lines. So when I do the grass, I don't do it once, I do it twice. I go, you're laughing, I'm not kidding. I do it twice, okay? I go one way, and then I go the other way, because it cuts the grass evenly. But I didn't know that there was a wrong way to cut grass. you know? So now I just want to move to Arizona. I want to move to Arizona and have rocks in front. I don't want grass. I'm going with that drought resistant thing. I'm pulling out all the grass.
And that just goes back to our upbringing. You grew up with a gardener. You never have to worry about that. My dad taught us. We did our own landscaping. We didn't have a gardener or a housekeeper like he did. So, and my dad, this is something my dad taught us, and I can't get it out of my head. My dad said that you can tell a lot about a man by the way he keeps his yard. That's just what he put in us, Fred. We all feel that way. And it's not just us, it's my cousin too. My cousin's like, that neighbor cut the grass and he left his trimmings on there, like the wind's gonna blow it or something. You don't even sweep them up. But that's because that's how we were raised.
Well, the wind does blow.
No, we have to sweep it. So, but we're cool now. That was in the beginning. We're just, we understand each other now.
All right, let's talk about a husband's response. You know, just like the scriptures calls for a wife to respond to her husband's responsibilities, it also requires a husband to respond to his wife's responsibilities. So, Ephesians 5:28 says, in the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies, for a man who loves his wife actually shows love for himself. No one hates his own body, but feeds and cares for it, just as Christ cares for the church. Colossians 3:19 says, husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly. And 1 Peter 3:7 says, in the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be, and I emphasize may be, weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. So, an often neglected aspect of a husband's call to love his wife is how that love is demonstrated. In the verses that we just read together, what key words or admonitions, it should be admonitions, admonishments, describe the kind of response a wife needs from her husband. What are some of those key words? Understanding, honor, acknowledgement, must. Good, that's good. What else? Love. Anything else? Kind, weaker. Weaker should be something that we pay attention to. We'll go on and look at Proverbs 31:28. It says, her children stand and bless her. This is, I know a lot of you have heard, well, Proverbs 31 woman. This is where it's at. This is where it's at. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty doesn't last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. That's pretty cool. But just like the guy is required to live up to certain things, so is the woman. So from those verses, what's the husband's response to his wife?
To love her.
To love her?
As Christ loved the church.
Okay. Praise her. Okay. Acknowledge her. So do you think that his attitude is the cause or result of her actions? Is it the cause of her actions, or is it the result of her actions? It's the result of her actions. So why is a husband's praise important to a wife's success in fulfilling her biblical responsibilities?
It uplifts.
It uplifts her?
Just like we want kudos when we do something out of the ordinary, they like the thing. It's a 50-50 thing.
Yeah. Who doesn't like kudos? Why do you have to do something special?
Yeah.
I get encouraged, Claudina. I don't know how, it's like, I don't know, guys, most guys I know are not really like that, where it's like, we're not great encouragers. We're just not. The women, because they're the nurturers, Claudina will get up, just out of the clear blue. Man, I really appreciate you going to work every day and doing what you do for us. I'm like, okay, what do you want? But she's always throwing those encouraging, you work so hard, I said, what do you want me to do? Just sit down. really? What, you know, what got broken? Or, you know, you're always looking for, why are you being so nice to me? You know, why are you being so nice to me? And there's really no motivation behind it except for love, you know? But, I mean, I agree with what you said, but at the same time, I don't think that it needs to be something out of the ordinary that gets that admonishment, admonition. Yeah, that works, okay? I think that we need to encourage each other and give those things, those statements, whenever we possibly can, whenever the situation presents itself. And, you know, I was, I'll tell you about this, but I was putting together a lesson that I'm going to be doing this week. I'm doing a workshop, and I'm doing it on the love and respect thing, and man, I can't remember what I was calling that. So I'm looking at
That's like the third time this
Yeah.
month.
well, I did turn 50, so.
Well, I love how it says, reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. So it's like the brother was saying about the kudos. You know, I think that everybody needs kudos. Everybody needs to feel appreciated. If you don't feel appreciated as a wife, probably not, or as a husband, I'm talking about the wife now. If you don't feel valued or appreciated, you're not going to be motivated. You can, you know, that saying, you made this with love. You can tell the food tastes special. It's great. House smells great. If your wife does not feel appreciated, she's probably not going to be motivated to do these things. And she will do them by force or because she has to out of obligation. And that's not good. You should reward your wife. You should praise her. You should, you know, acknowledge the things that she does do. Just because it's her duty, just like you. It's your job to go to work and take care of your family. However, I appreciate that because I know that there's some people that don't out there. So it's my job to take care of the house. However, I know there's some people that don't. So those kudos and appreciation is a good thing to have in there. To feel valued. When I feel happy, I do extra things.
Never told me that.
When I feel valued and special by it's true. When I feel like I'm a queen, and I'm the queen bee at home, and I just do whatever I want, and the house smells good, I want to cook or do something, I even want to go help with the yard.
Really?
She's absolutely right.
I know.
I mean, when I would say more encouragement towards the wife, a lot more. A woman's going to put a lot more into doing outside things, inside things, and whatever else needs to get done. It's gonna.
So it's equal encouragement,
Yeah.
right? Equal encouragement. Monique, what were you going to say?
I think it also boosts confidence.
Yes.
Once the person acknowledges you did that and it you know, really helped me or you did a great job, and like, oh, okay, well, I can do even a little better next time. You know, and therefore they're willing to step up and continue to do it and find better ways and more ways to make life easier for everybody.
Cool. Yes.
I have to say Bill's got it right because in the last 6 months I've had more compliments and encouraging nice things from him than in the last 10 years married to my other husband.
I know, but look at how many years he's had to practice.
That's
You
true.
know? You got it down. You got to be the one to teach all of us, right? So don't let her do all the talking.
I told him to tell you.
Or are you just submitting? Okay.
I want to say this real quick. When I married my husband, I had come out of, yes, Allan. I was a very broken person. I was very broken. And little by little, God had to put the pieces together. And he had to heal a lot of areas in my heart. But I have to say that there came a point in our marriage where I realized how valuable I was because you made me feel valuable. Then I started to see my attitude change. I had confidence. I had a smile on my face. Then I started to walk around like my stuff, my stuff don't stink. I'm like, woo-hoo. But that was because the husband that you are, that was beautiful. And we're going to be married 19 years, but that was incredible because I was a very broken person where I didn't get praise. I didn't get built up, ever, growing up or in my past. So to be married to the gift that God has given you, and He compliments you and adds to your life and motivates you every single day, makes you feel so valuable. I started to notice, even after we started doing marriage ministry, you look, when you see a happy wife, there's a good husband right there. And I think it goes both ways. A confident woman. Why is that woman so confident? She didn't know that. You know what? Her husband, her family, her home, they help, they build her up. And in return, she gives all that back. It's like a bank account,
That's right.
You deposit,
You can't draw insufficient funds out of a relationship. No, it's true. And I mean, I've heard a lot of marriage speakers talk about that. It's, every time you do something, you're depositing into your relationship account. And you cannot take out more than you put in. So if you're not doing anything for your spouse, how are you expecting to dive in and take something out when you ain't got nothing in your account?
Credit.
Right? Ain't no credits when it comes to your relationship account. And you can't apply for no loans, okay? So it's like, hey brother, let me borrow some respect. Let me borrow some. You can't, so it's all in what you put into it. Bottom line is that if a husband's fulfilling his biblical responsibilities, do you think it's going to have a positive effect on his wife's attitude and submission?
Yes.
Well, of course. But we're not even there. How about if the wife does not receive encouragement or praise from her husband? What happens? What? What? I heard something
I said
mumbling
the
over
whole
here.
house will come tumbling down.
Okay. Well, biblically it says a house divided will not stand, right? So you got to make sure that whatever division you have comes to an end real quick. Don't let it linger. A crack usually expands. It doesn't fix itself unless you put something in there to stop the crack from spreading. Right? So, what's that something? Love, submission, the word, whatever you want to throw in there. So, the effects could be devastating when a wife doesn't receive encouragement or praise from her husband. And then you're going to wonder, well, how come she's not doing anything for me? You got to look back. Check your account. You look like you overdrawn. NSF. Non-sufficient fulfillment. That's really what it comes down to.
You get in big trouble for that.
Yeah, you ain't lying. So, are there some practical ways that these responsibilities can be demonstrated in marriage? Yeah. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, especially your spouse. I know I can't add to God's word, but nonetheless, you hear what I'm saying. You have to be able to put stuff in before you take stuff out. You got to be able to love on each other. I'll just give you something to think about. Maybe you can do it together at some point. But if you look back at the Bible passages that we talked about today, you can go back and underline key words that help define what our biblical response to our spouse should be. And then you could write down what your response or attitude should be in support of your spouse fulfilling their biblical responsibilities. And maybe you can put down a way that you're going to put that into practice. It's good to go back and do a review. How cool would that be? How many of you know that it's really cool if you do your your job and you do it well, you look forward to those reviews. And hopefully, it's like, well, how come maybe some of you don't get a review? But, reality is usually when you're on a job, you start a new job, 90 days you get reviewed. And that's to decide whether you're sticking around or you're hitting the road. Right? And so if you're doing your job and you're looking forward to it, you're looking forward to that 90-day review because it's going to be let's look back and let's see all the good things that you've done. Or let's look back and let you know the reasons why you won't be here tomorrow. Okay? But if you went back and you did a review in your relationship on a weekly basis and stayed away from the negative, but more looked back and did a review on the positive and said, wow, I really appreciate Tuesday when you did this, or I really appreciate, man, could you imagine how that would build each other up? How cool that would be? Oh, PA, we don't have time for that. Again, I'm just talking about making a deposit into your account. Okay? When you get a check, you always got time to run to the bank, right? Mm-hmm. You always got time to go make that money good in your account. So why not make a deposit into your relationship account? Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, did everybody sign the card that we passed around? Did anybody not sign the card? Okay.
You can use it back.
I'm not gonna repeat it, but we have someone in Fusion that was involved in an accident yesterday that's in ICU, and we want everyone to show the love. It's Harold Stevens. If you don't know who he is, I really can't go into it again. Ask somebody else. But nonetheless, we want to show him some love from the Fusion. Also, want to let you know that Pastor Fred and I are leaving today, this afternoon, for a missions trip. We're actually going to the Navajo Nation in Tuba City, Arizona, with another church that's been going out there for some time, and they are allowing me to do a marriage workshop out there. One of the days which I said that I was going to be doing love and respect. So all that to say, keep us in prayer. It's a very downtrodden nation. It's a very ministering to Native American Indians is not typical going, and we need your prayers. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Okay, so please pray for Pastor Fred and I and the whole team that's going over there. I should be back Thursday. If I don't pick it up, come back Wednesday. But we'll be over there for a few days, so your prayers are encouraged. Okay? Any questions or comments or anything like that? Yes.
I just would like to share, as Christians and believers, we have to be in the Word on a daily basis, and that builds your faith, your relationship with God, and then your marriage. And it's an awesome thing when me and Monique started this, we read the same thing. Some days I don't read it, some days she don't read it, but I challenge her to read it. She challenges me to read it. So that causes us to be in the Word. And if you say you're a believer, that's what you need to be in. God's Word every day. I want to share that.
All right. Thank you. So spiritual. Good. Yes.
My relationship with my partner, he was Jewish, but he didn't believe in Jesus. And I always would pray for a parking spot for us when we would go somewhere. On one day, he came and said, pray to your parking God for a parking spot. And I looked at him and said, I don't have a parking God. You pray for a parking God, and I'll pray to Jesus. And we didn't do a parking spot that day. So he saw me praying, and he knew about it. He always heard that everything was, for me, was with Jesus' help. And he saw all that. And I pray that he finally accepted the Lord before he died.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, anything like that? Okay, so remember we have 3 weeks before we start this new series. Please invite somebody. It's going to be a good series. Okay? I think we already passed around offering. If you want